Man, a lot happening today.
So much.
Oh my goodness. I feel like the last couple of weeks have just been thing after thing after thing.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today for KARE 11 News at noon. Busy day at both the state and U.S. capitals.
Yeah, a highly anticipated ruling just came down that will shake up the balance of power in the Minnesota House once again.
And before we get to that, we've got to talk about the weather. These Arctic winds. I took the dog out this morning and I was like, you need to hurry up. This is just a lot going on.
Yes. This time of year, this kind of weather, you really have to limit the time that you want to be outside or your pets want to be outside, definitely. The good news is I have a warm-up included in this forecast, but right now, not so much. Beautiful blue skies overhead, cosmetic sunshine, I call it. Looks real pretty, just doesn't heat things up too much. 1 degree at MSP, but feels like -12. Northwest winds fairly light too, 7 miles an hour. Those winds can do some damage to that feel-like temperature. There's a look at the rest of the region, and we're in the single digits. Some of us still in the negative category there. As we can see, -1 in Bemidji and Brainerd. St. Cloud sitting at 0. Alexandria, you're at 3 below. Wilmer, 2 below. We have La Crosse, the warm spot on the map there, at 4 degrees. This is what it feels like, though, outside. It's teens and 20s for most of us, below 0. Bemidji, the one exception, sitting at about -1 for a feel-like temperatures. That's, I guess, really the legitimate warm spot on the map there. Let's take a look ahead through the rest of your afternoon. The numbers, they'll climb a little higher today. We should see about an 8 or maybe even a 9 briefly for this afternoon. Your wind chills will make a nice improvement. We're coming out of the -20s this morning. We'll get to the single digits below 0, but like I said, tomorrow, big warm up. I'll have those details in just a few minutes.
Jamie, thank you. And just hours before the start of the legislative session at the Capitol, a judge issued a critical ruling upholding the election of Representative Brad Tabke. The decision could play a part in the House balance of power. Danny Spiewak has more from the Capitol.
A judge ruled this morning that Representative Brad Tabke, the DFL representative in Shakopee in District 54A, rightfully won re-election. The court, in its ruling, found that there was no basis for a special election in this case. The Republican challenger, Aaron Paul, had contested this election in court because of 20 absentee ballots that had gone missing. But the court, in its ruling, found that those ballots didn't materially change the outcome of the election. The DFL and Representative Tabke himself have called on Republicans now to agree to seat him, saying that the court has made its decision and has decided that there is no need for a special election. However, the GOP has been insistent on that special election, and their leader in the House, Representative Lisa Damon, says she remains concerned about those ballots that went missing. And because the House has a lot of power and latitude to determine the eligibility of its own members under the state constitution, they're going to evaluate the ruling. Also, Aaron Paul can challenge this to the state Supreme Court.
Well, the legislative session convened only minutes ago amid all of the partisan drama and power struggles. In the past hour, we learned that Democrats are boycotting the first day of the session, even after the Tabke decision. They say that's because Republicans are still trying to unseat him. Cece, there's so much going on back and forth. What are we hearing from Democrats right now?
Yeah, well, within the last hour, House Leader Melissa Hortman posted a statement saying because Republicans refused to rule out unseating Tabke, Democrats have no choice but to not show up to work until January 28th. That's when a special election is expected to bring the Minnesota House back to a 67-67 tie, meaning elected members would have to share power equally. Hortman went on to say that Democrats can't allow the Republicans to abuse power and will use every tool at their disposal to block this. Now, while that's going on, things are a little quieter over at the Senate. Democrats and Republicans have reached an agreement to share the power while there's a temporary tie. Each side will appoint a co-presiding officer for the Senate. Every committee will have joint chairs and an equal number of senators from each party. They also agreed to not change any Senate rules through the end of the year. The tie will be broken after a special election to fill former DFL Senate Majority Leader Kerry Diedzik's seat. A lot going on here. Of course, we'll have more in our later shows about how this all shakes everything up, but stick around for that and on KARE11.com.
Cece, thank you. Voting in the primary election for that Senate seat began just 5 hours ago and continues until 8 tonight. Voters are asked to narrow down the ballot from 7 Democrats to 2 Republicans, with the special election between today's winners on January 28th. Senate District 60 covers parts of northeast Minneapolis, Cedar Riverside, and the area around the U, historically a heavily blue area. Polls are open until 8 p.m. And a reminder for you, some polling locations changed at the end of 2024, so check on your location. We got that link for you at KARE11.com. Well, in less than 2 hours, a judge will decide if a Minnesota state senator's criminal trial will be delayed. Nicole Mitchell is accused of breaking into her stepmother's home last year. Her trial is set to begin at the end of the month, but she's requesting it be delayed until after the legislative session, which would be around May. According to the criminal complaint, she told police she broke in because her stepmother refused to give her sentimental items belonging to her late father. So stick with KARE 11 as the legislative session continues. We've got live coverage from the Capitol beginning at 4 p.m. Big news out of the Middle East today. Officials say that Hamas has accepted a draft agreement for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Now that's a step closer to a final deal. NBC's Richard Engel reports from Jerusalem.
Two Israeli officials tell us that they have never been closer to reaching a ceasefire deal with Hamas, and that for the first time, they're really talking specifics about a deal. They outlined the deal as follows. First of all, this is not a one and done type of arrangement. It's not that Hamas just releases the hostages and the war in Gaza is over. This takes place over time in several different stages. The first one is a 48-hour pause in the fighting. Assuming that holds, Hamas releases 33 hostages. These are the so-called humanitarian cases, the elderly, children, sick, wounded. If that proceeds smoothly, and this could take place in batches over 42 days, so a lot could go wrong in this period. Assuming it continues to go smoothly, it moves on to the second phase of the hostage releases. Those would be younger people, Israeli soldiers, people that Hamas could consider to be Israeli soldiers. At the end of all of this, Israel would pull out of Gaza, pulling out of the major population centers, but keeping a buffer zone, keeping a part of the Gaza Strip as a security perimeter to protect Israel. And during this process, and at the end, Israel will be releasing, it described as hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. The exact number depends on how many hostages are released alive. Richard Engel, NBC News, Jerusalem.
With less than a week until President-elect Donald Trump is inaugurated into office, confirmations of his cabinet picks are underway. Now that includes Minnesota native Pete Hegseth. He's Trump's pick for defense secretary. Hegseth is a veteran and former Fox News anchor, but has faced accusations of sexual assault, alcohol abuse, and financial mismanagement in the past. The Forest Lake native denies all accusations against him. Final confirmation votes require only a simple majority, but with Republicans holding only a slim majority in the Senate, he can't afford to lose many votes. Well, overnight, the Department of Justice publicly released Special Counsel Jack Smith's report on President-elect Donald Trump and his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The 130-page report outlines what Smith refers to as, quote, a series of criminal efforts to retain power.
Good evening.
That includes pressuring state officials and then Vice President Mike Pence and the plan to use fraudulent electors. It also outlines how Trump's supporters attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Now, Trump slammed the report on Truth Social, calling its findings fake and referring to Smith as a lame-brained prosecutor. Now, we continue to follow those devastating wildfires in California, where winds are expected to be strong from now through tomorrow. Today, at least 13 million people are under particularly dangerous red flag warnings. The National Weather Service has already reported wind gusts above 70 miles per hour, and fire officials say that they could lead to rapid growth and explosive fire behavior.
We're very well prepared for the next event, but that's never going to be, we're never sure that we're going to be able to catch the next fire and keep it small.
If the winds impact the fires, it could lead to more evacuations in more areas in the next 48 hours.